In this video on coordinate geometry of the line, we'll be looking at how to find the equation of a line given 2 points on the line. And before we do an example, let's just remind ourselves of how we get the equation of a line. Well, we have a formula for the equation of a line first of all, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This can be found on page 18 of the log tables. To complete this formula, we need to know two pieces of information. We need a point on the line and we need the line slope. So in this type of question that we're going to be looking at, we're not going to be given the slope. Instead, we'll be given 2 points. But of course, if we know 2 points, we'll be able to find the slope of the line. And again, we have a formula for this from page 18 of the log tables, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's look at an example. In this example, we're going to find the equation of the line that passes through the points 1, 4 and the point 3, 7. So the first thing that I'll think about is, do I have all the information that I need to get the equation? Well, remember that we need to know the point, a point I should say, any point will do, as long as it's on the line, and the slope of the line. Now I have a couple of different points, so I'm fine on that score, but I don't have a slope. So that'll be my first step, to find the slope. So I'll first note the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and then I'll make a note of my 2 points and I'll label them. So I've labelled my points x1, y1 and x2, y2, and now I can fill this information into my slope formula. So in this case, I'll have 7 minus 4 over 3 minus 1, and I can simplify this to give 3 over 2, and I'm perfectly happy to leave my slope as an improper fraction. That's totally fine. So I have my slope now, so I need a point and a slope to get the equation. So slope is got 3 over 2, and I get to pick whichever of these 2 points that I like. It doesn't make a difference which one I choose, I'll get the same answer at the end regardless. So I'm going to go with 1, 4, and I'm going to write down that next to my slope. So these will be the 2 pieces of information I'll go on to make the equation with. Again, I'm just labelling them clearly to make it really obvious what's happening when I go to fill in my equation formula. And because I need to use that equation formula, I'm also going to note that in my question. And now I'll just substitute in as normal. So I'll have y minus 4 equals 3 over 2 for slope by x minus 1. And at this stage then I'm going to multiply out my brackets. So y minus 4 is unaffected, equals 3 over 2x minus 3 over 2. And now I'll just decide which way I want to arrange my final answer. So I'm going to go with y equals mx plus c for my format. So that just means that I need to leave y where it is and move my minus 4 across and make it a positive. Okay, so I've done that, and now I'll just put my 2 constants together. Again, you can use the calculator for this if you want to just reassure yourself that you're definitely correct. And so my equation of my line in this case is y equals 3 over 2x plus 5 over 2. If you're not convinced that the point 3, 7 would have given you the same answer at this stage at the end of your question, well then go back and use that point now and see, do you end up with the same conclusion? And you should. As an extension question to follow on from that, take a moment to write this equation in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. So take this information and rearrange it in this format instead, and pause the video while you do that and then play and see if you were correct. Okay, so if you answered that correctly, then you'll have written it as 3x minus 2y plus 5 equals 0. So now here's your question. Find the equation of the line that passes through minus 1, 2 and 2 minus 3. Okay, so let's go through our solution here. So the first thing to note is that we asked for the equation of the line. So we're going to have a point and a slope. So I'm going to need to work out a slope since I'm not given one. So I'll make a note of my slope formula. So there's my formula, and now I'll note the 2 points I'm going to use in it. So clearly that's minus 1, 2 and 2 minus 3, and I'll label these before I fill in. So I've labelled my 2 points, and now I'll substitute into the slope formula. With this, just watch out for your negatives. So on the top this time, I'm going to have minus 3 minus 2, and on the bottom, I'll have 2 plus 1. Now just take a moment to think about why, given that there's a negative in the formula, I've written down a positive here. Well, of course, it's because a negative makes a positive. Feel free, if you like, to write down minus minus and then change it into plus, that's fine as well. And then I'll simplify my slope, and in this case, I'll get a slope of minus 5 over 3. So of course, I'm aiming to find the equation of the line, and to do that I need to have a slope and a point. So I've got my slope just now, and I can use either of the points that I've been given on the line to get the equation. And just for a bit of variety, I'm going to do this particular question using 2 minus 3. So I've labelled those now as my slope and my point that I'm going to use. And just to point out that if you've chosen the point -1, 2 as your point to get the equation of the line, that's absolutely fine. We should both get the same answer at the end of the question. So I'm going to label my slope as m, and this time I'll call this point 2 minus 3 x1, y1. And I'm calling it x1, y1 because it's the point that I'm going to use in the equation of the line formula. You'll notice that in the first line here, I've called it x2, y2. Well, that's because it was the second point in a pair that I was using to get slope, but now it's just the solo point that I'm using to get the equation. And that's why I've called it x1, y1. So now I'll note the formula for the equation of the line, and we'll substitute into that. And again, just take care with your signs. So I'm getting y plus 3. And again, notice there's a negative in the formula, but I'm writing down positive because it's negative to make that plus, equals -5/3 by x minus 2. Now we'll multiply out. So we'll have y plus 3 equals -5/3x plus 10/3. And then, depending on the format that I want, I'm going to rearrange. So I'm going to go for the y equals mx plus c format. And that just means that I'll leave the y where it is and bring the 3 across. And then just one last bit of tidying up. And again, don't be afraid to use the calculator here for this. And we end up with y equals -5/3x plus 1/3. And that is the exact same answer that you should get even if you had used the point -1, 2. So it's important to note that as long as you have the slope of that particular line and then any point at all along that line, you always should get the same equation in your final answer. Again, just as a little extension question at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to write this equation in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0, just for practice. So pause for a second while you do that and then play and check if your answer was correct. And if you did that correctly, you should be getting 5x plus 3y minus 1 equals 0.